Welcome to Changing the Perception of Blindness, one conversation at a time, where we aim to break down barriers, demystify blindness, and promote real and lasting change. Join host David Steinmetz as he connects us with professionals who are making a positive impact in the community. These leaders help empower individuals who are blind or have other disabilities to live a full and inclusive life. Let's lean in as David kicks off today's conversation.
Hello and welcome to this episode. I'm your host, David Steinmetz. I wonder how many times you, much like myself, had said to yourself, wow, that was easier than I thought it was, or that wasn't what I expected it to be. We all have this image or mindset that things are a certain way based on our cultural differences, based on religion, based on our background, and also based on our experiences. Well, blindness is very much the same way when people think about the expectation or experience with blindness. I often find people saying, I wouldn't be able to survive, I couldn't do it. It's because typically those people haven't had the opportunity either to experience or interact with somebody who is blind, visually impaired. Well, this show is really designed to help demystify blindness, to break down barriers, and to create opportunities for people who are blind, visually impaired to live a full and inclusive life. I'm really excited today to have our special guest, Mr. Chris LaFollette from Arizona Industries for the Blind, an enterprise nonprofit organization in Phoenix, Arizona. Welcome, Chris. Please introduce yourself and your background.
Hey, thank you so much, David. My name is Chris LaFollette. I'm the president CEO of Arizona Industries for the Blind. I've been in the great state of Arizona now for a little more than 3 years. I've been involved in the industry, when I say industry, Ability One and JWAD, for about 24 years, David. And I used to work for at that time, a niche organization for about 10 years. And after that, I saw an opportunity to start my own business, and I did so. But I still was working with Ability One and JWAD at that time by selling products into something called base service stores, and did that for about 10 years before I started my position as President CEO.
Well, congratulations to you, Chris. And I know you're hit the ground running and making a difference here locally in Arizona for people who are blind, visually impaired. Tell me a little bit more, and our listeners today, a little bit more about Arizona Industries for the Blind, and what is it that you do?
Well, look, David, it's a great question. Arizona Industries for the Blind is, number one, the largest employer of people who are blind or visually impaired in the state of Arizona, non-government. And we have 3 different business units. We have a distribution business, large 3PL. We operate at 515 51st Ave here in Arizona. We also have base service stores. We have 3 of those physical locations at Yuma Marine Station. We have another one at Tucson, Arizona, called Davis Monthan. And we have one here in Glendale, Arizona, called Luke Air Force Base. We now have a 4th on the way down at Fort Huachuca. It is not a physical location of yet, but it's on its way. And again, what we do is we do a little bit of everything, David. And when I say that, it's a true assessment. What we do is at our DSU, our distribution channel, we have 3 different businesses there, contracts we work up under. And if anybody has ever worn a military uniform or seen a military uniform, there's a great chance those insignias came from Arizona Industries for the Blind. Really exciting, everything from the braid, the marksmanship medal, Purple Heart, and even the Medal of Honor. And that's Army, Air Force, Navy, Marine, and now Space Force. We also do springs. We have a spring contract, everything from gun turrets all the way down to a pinhead spring. And we also have a lighting contract. So a lot of times you see military aircraft flying above. There's a great chance that the lights on that aircraft came from AIB, that we were distributing those for that aircraft. We hold them for DLA. The base service stores, we do everything from selling paper and pencils to tactical gear, and really being a service to the serviceman and woman, supporting a warfighter. It's exciting to me, the fact that we have people that are invested to really the benefit of our country. And that's exciting to me that we're able to do so and really take a real pride in doing so. And it may seem a little, at times, out of the way when you think about someone who's blind or visually impaired that is selling everything from tactical gear to paper and pencils. But at the same time, it goes to show you that there's just anything that someone who is blind, or visually impaired, or disabled for that matter, can do. That's a little bit of what we do. We also actually, I apologize, we have a digital data scan as well at AIB. And the easiest way I can say, we just basically taken paper documents and turn them over to digital. Easy for indexing more so than anything else, but researching and really getting rid of a lot of paper files. Just really good. And we use a lot. Law firms actually use us as well. We do some mapping for some as well. There's just many things we're able to do in digital data scan. So those are 3 business units that we have at AIB and some of the jobs that people who are blind, visually impaired are doing today.
Great. Thank you for that background about AIB. And I have the honor also of working for Arizona Industries for Blind, working with Chris to make a difference in our community. One of the challenges that we always talk about is providing opportunities for people who are blind to achieve their version of the American dream. And that's typically through opportunities of personal, professional growth, right, financial stability. And for many Americans who are blind, vision impaired, or other disabilities, as a matter, are unemployed. 70% unemployed. 7 out of 10 Americans. These are veterans returning from war who have been injured, to just everyday folks who are wanting more for themselves and to support themselves, their family, and so forth. So one of the things we talk a lot about, Chris, is how do we help those individuals be able to achieve their goals and dreams? When we talk about different organizations, whether it's on a commercial basis or the federal government. How can we kind of work towards together with those organizations to create new opportunities for people who are blind?
Well, David, again, it's another great question. There's so many things that people who are blind or visually impaired can do. A great example is on the way here, we saw autonomous cars. The biggest challenge usually is because of transportation or availability to printed literature. It's always a hurdle. So, look, the many things that we can try to do together is try to remove the stigmas around blindness. And what that means is somebody sees a person come in with a guide dog and or a cane. A lot of times immediately there's a limit put on them. Okay, well, I need to open a door for this person. I need to get this for them. I need to move this out the way. We need to understand that people who are blind or visually impaired by no means are any less than. We are finding out more and more that there's probably more to offer for somebody who's blind or visually impaired. And they notice things around them a lot more so than people sometimes who had vision. And I'll go in depth about that a little bit later. But the opportunities really matter to what we can actually try to dream up. Really, because of technology, where it's going, what it's doing, it's limitless, David. And we're talking a little bit about AIB today, but we do distribution. 30, 40, 50 years ago, they would have never thought that someone who's blind or visually impaired could have been involved in distribution. Let me give you an example. A lot of our orders you have to pick. We have orders that come in daily, on average about 1,400 to 1,500. And we have people who are totally blind in our warehouse going out and pick those. Now, we're able to do so because of technology, something called TalkMan, which is really exciting to me. But at the same time, that didn't exist 30 years ago. So what's happening today is we're removing the barriers, and technology is allowing us to do so. So what opportunities are out there? It's limitless. Again, it's what we dream of. Are we going to see somebody, and again, in our warehouse, I'll use as an example, drive a forklift? Yes. That answer is yes. There's guide-by-wire systems. There's GPS. There's nothing somebody cannot do who's blind or visually impaired if given the opportunity. Those opportunities we're trying to create daily at AIB.
Sure, and that's a really important point. Is the beginning of my show, we're talking about that perception, and when we go out into the community on a daily basis or a networking event, and that question is, how does somebody who is blind do at whatever that task or job may be? And it's having that education, right? We're opportunity to do that today on this bigger scale, and having a president, CEO of an organization that is committed to empowering people who are blind using their talents, their contributions, their experiences to really move the organization forward. So it's about creating those opportunities. There are some barriers that you kind of mentioned on in terms of transportation or access to electronic information. So when we start leveling the playing field with that technology to help people, So really we have to look at do you change the mindset? How can we get in front of either other leaders who want to have a diversity, equity, and inclusion program to um, in that process or philosophy include people who are blind, visually impaired?
Look, David, it's number one. It's going to be about education. Number one, it has to be about education. I was in a conversation recently where someone was talking about opportunities that we could get involved in, and it was something very menial, and I did not appreciate it. But at the same time, this person maybe not have ever had a conversation with someone and been educated on the opportunities and really the skill set. We've got to get past putting limitations on people. We've got to look past the disabilities and look at the capabilities. And you do so with proof tasks. That's why AIB exists. We are here to employ people who are visually impaired or blind. There are other organizations that employ people who are overall disabled and deal with disabilities. But unfortunately, the commercial, industrial, and society, for that matter, has not gravitated to it. Government has tried to do things for years, and I applaud them, but at times they get in the way. What we need to do is get investment from corporate partners to allow and look at skill set rather than a disability. And as we do that, we will see ourselves move forward. But you cannot prove yourself unless you are given that opportunity. You just can't do it. I can't talk about it. I can't go get a master's. I can't get a doctorate. I have to actually prove myself. And until we're given that opportunity, it's hard to do so, David. And we're doing that daily. And I will tell you, I've seen it for 20 plus years. And the only limitation is the one we put upon ourselves. And I believe in that. And people who are blind or visually impaired every single day are breaking through that barrier. But it takes corporate. I take an investment from corporate entities, non-government, because what we have to see is someone who believes, and again, what talents lie within the individual, not lack of.
Oh, great response. Very true about really looking at the talents of people, not putting limitations on them from lack of knowledge and putting somebody in a box before they even had a chance to get in the door. Great opportunities and great perspective on that. One of the things that when you and I talk or we're out in the community is talking about the talents, and it also requires the desire, right? Whether it's on the employee, the person with the disability, as well as the organization, and from a leadership perspective of making sure that that buy-in from your team helps drive that culture, drive that mission to ensure that people who are blind or vision impaired are successful in doing their job on a daily basis.
Great.
What type of things does AIB do, or in terms of maybe conversation with your colleagues and on a higher level, the CEO type level, can we do or organizations do to build that model, right? You would talk about business models where Arizona Industries for Blind is looking to provide a product or service at the highest quality while creating employment and solving the unemployment issue.
Well, it's just another good question. So I'm going to lead into it this way, David. So I'm fortunate when somebody says, "Hey, what do you do?" and I tell them, and immediately they say, "Well, that's kind, that's generous." I don't know what you're talking about, generous. What we're here to do is employ people with blind or visually impaired. I didn't think that was generous. Basically, what I'm trying to do is highlight somebody's capabilities and talents. I'm no different than anybody else. Success is very key to us, and success in employment. And lowering that 70% unemployment ratio that we haven't moved in years. But the way we're able to do so is again bringing opportunities and buy-in. I think that's a key phrase: buy-in from those corporate partners. Bring in people who understand that. Look, they may be struggling, but I have a very talented labor force. Notice when I said a labor force, workforce, I didn't say anything about blindness there whatsoever. I think it's so important to bring into conversation the fact that we've got to look beyond, and I mentioned that just earlier, is now I get excited now. Now I can really get it. And so I apologize if you hear a change in my voice, but historically we have put people in boxes, and that's not fair. And again, when I'm looking at our opportunities that we bring into AIB, there's some very large companies that we're bringing in today. We're part of conversations today. And the reason being is that we are having these type of conversations with these corporate partners. Notice what I said with corporate partners. We're going to have buy-in from them to be able to bring these opportunities, regardless if it's the manufacturing of a new boot, no matter if it's distribution of metals like we do today. It's no different that we have opportunities which creating HVAC C filters that go on our air conditioning filters. Again, it's limited. It's limitless. But the fact is getting buy-in and having conversation and educating those corporate partners to understand, again, the capabilities and that we have the talented labor force. COVID has been a friend of ours a little bit, and I hate to say it that way, but with the reduction of labor in the job market, we've been able to say, hey, we can do this. And so we're hearing our phone ring a little more because they're looking for labor. They're no longer looking for something that's, hey, just perfect. Well, we're not saying we're perfect or non-perfect, but we have an opportunity to fill that seat. And once we do it, we prove ourselves. We're not going to fail. And I use that, and I've got proof. 26 years in a row that AIB now has a 99.9% stock accuracy, $120 million worth of goods, a 99.89% on-time delivery. There's a small little company called Amazon that would love to have those kind of ratios. But I do it with a very talented workforce, labor force. And that labor force happens to be blind or visually impaired, but they had to prove themselves. Now, is there any way that we can get beyond? Are we striving for perfection and settling for excellence every day? Yes. But again, they were given the opportunity. So what about the people who are not? So, David, I believe there's so many more opportunities out there. We're just scratching the surface. AIB, and we have sister agencies who do very similar work. And again, they're a little larger. Some are very large, but they do everything from, again, producing paper and pencils. But we've got people that do very complex sewing, which is amazing, in textiles. I love hearing stories like that. Mm-hmm. But remember, 30 years ago, 40 years ago, this would not be available. Technology has allowed us to get to where we're at, and it goes hand in hand with these opportunities we're talking about.
Yeah, really important to talk about that in terms of, you mentioned buy-in, right, from leadership levels all the way through the organization to our frontline workers, people out on the floor who are dedicated, who have something to prove, who are looking to advance themselves or support their family, or just like in any workforce, you have people that have that desire to strive for more, and others that are very content to come in, give 110%, go home, and be done for the day. So it takes all kinds of people throughout the organization to make an organization be successful. So good point. And talking about the history of the program, or nonprofit organizations that help empower people who are blind, vision impaired, or other disabilities have come a long way from, right? People think of programs as something that may be, I'll use the word, in which I don't like, sheltered workshop, right? I think people have that image that someone who is blind or someone who has a disability can only assemble a broom or sort out a couple nuts and bolts from one another. But day in and day out, people with disabilities are proving and demystifying or bunking that myth, and are working at CEO levels, running huge organizations, to self-employed operators of different restaurants or business opportunities, and everywhere in between. So it's when those individuals really get the opportunity, they can thrive. So good point in bringing that up, Chris, about where the vision of people who are blind, vision impaired, and the perception of what they can do to where we are now, right? Running CNC machines and things like that.
Thank you, sir.
So thank you for bringing that. We also struggle in terms of, right, how do we get that message across? There's federal programs where government has created opportunities partnerships to employ people who are blind, vision impaired, to provide products and services to the federal government. Are those programs beneficial? Can they be expanded? Where do you see the direction of those programs going? And how can we bring in or grow that program to provide more jobs for people who are blind, vision impaired, or other disabilities across America?
So a tough question for me there, David, because I have different feelings and I'm not afraid to share them by any means. The problem I have with this is there are other opportunities if given the opportunity to succeed. I'll give you kind of the understanding of that. Right now, there's a ratio where small businesses within the federal government, I think it's a ratio of about 33.5% of small businesses are allotted preferential opportunities with the federal government to do business with them in some sort of way. Okay. That's a big number.
Mm-hmm.
But with people with disabilities, it's 1%. And I'm not happy about that. I fight that every day, man.
Mm-hmm.
That's to me, there's a problem. There's a huge disconnect. Where have we made the mistake? So yeah, there's a lot of places. But again, David, you brought up a good point with federal government. I agree 100%. But at the same time, let's not forget about corporate America. There's no reason why, we can't have people who are blind and visually impaired working at Fortune 500 companies. There's no reason whatsoever. Do they go hand in hand? Yes. Can we build upon what we're doing today and grow it? Yes, if given the opportunity. I talked about opportunities earlier. I'm very thankful for what we have, extremely appreciative, but there's more there. At times we tend to compete for a very small piece, and that small piece is large when you think about a total number, but not when you think about a 70% unemployment rate amongst people who are blind or visually impaired. So again, right now, just in the state of Arizona, there's 160 plus thousand people who are blind or visually impaired. And let's just say a third of those are working age, David. So for a round number, I'm going to use 50,000. And half of those don't want to work or they can't for some reason. There's other reasons there, but they're working age. So let's just say 25,000 people who are blind or visually impaired want the opportunity to work. And we're the largest employer of people who are blind or visually impaired, and we have 60 employees. So the opportunity is just not there. And no matter how big the number, we're always looking. With the ratios we talked about, distribution in our 3PL business, you would think people would be coming out the woodwork to try to do business with us. I know we're competitive. I know we're able to do the job. But for the federal government, they look at things differently. And again, there's a reason. I just don't understand it. That's why I look more towards corporate America. There's social consciousness out there. But at the same time, there's also the lack of labor. It's a great time to try to create labor in our job. In our jobs that we have today and that are being created every day. But at the same time, our performance allows us to differentiate ourselves from others. So you put those two things together, it's a great time for people who are blind, visually impaired, or disabled to kind of show what we're able to do. And we've been doing that throughout the pandemic. We became essential personnel throughout the pandemic. So while everybody was working from home, people who are blind, visually impaired, and or disabled had to come to work every day, and we dealt with the challenges that came along with it. Lack of transportation, and then reduced public transportation during the pandemic. There was a lot of issues, but I will tell you again and again and again, people who are blind or visually impaired met the call and exceeded expectations. So what we try to do is take that message to the federal government, and I'm fortunate enough to be part of a group that can do so. My voice, along with a lot more smart colleagues, will be able to speak in front of some decision makers in the very near future. And this will be part of the dialogue. It will be for me. And it's something that I hold near and dear, but at the same time, it's something that it's needed. It really is. I'm not going to settle for the 1%. We're better, and I think we deserve more.
Yes, I agree. Right, a lot of on the corporate side of the realm, when we talk about supplier diversity, for example, you go down, you look at the categories and of groups that are typically considered to be diversified. You typically don't find a nonprofit organization. Right, it's typically a sole ownership. A veteran-owned or minority-owned, et cetera, different classifications, which often also struggle to, not be competitive, but struggle to compete against those contracts. And so I understand the purpose and reasoning by doing that, but looking from a nonprofit perspective, it's really important to be able to at least have a seat at the table to have those conversations and, compete against those other individuals, compete against organizations, improve the concept and deliver on the contract. So those struggles happen even in the corporate world among other groups and organizations that have those opportunities. Often we find in through our work as a social enterprise business is really to that awareness, bringing on and dealing with what people might expect or think an organization or think that people who are blind wouldn't be able to be successful in the workplace, right? How does somebody access, you mentioned printed or electronic information? What types of technology is available to an organization or to someone who's blind that they would use in a daily basis, and just say in an administrative function or throughout your organization?
Look, there's screen magnifiers, there's screen readers, there's Talkman, which is a kind of a Vocalec product. It's basically where you're going through a warehouse and you're scanning it, talks to you, and it's interactive, which helps tremendously in a warehouse environment. There's so many things today, and kudos to now. I'm going to say that a lot of technology is coming out through the phones, even that helps them tremendously. GPS. There's so much right now it's available to us, and so much is coming out daily. You've got something just as simple as where people who are colorblind now. You've got glasses that are able to see color. Are we far away now from providing vision or getting vision for people who are totally blind? I don't think we're far away, David. I don't. But I put all that in a group. Is with the future is coming a tremendous amount of technology, and it's happening daily. So this is all changing as we speak. We're seeing it come every year as we go to seminars and some of these events to learn more. But again, on the way here, we were talking about autonomous cars. It's little things like that that will make the lives much better, much less employment, much better for people who are blind or visually impaired.
I agree. It was really exciting a few years ago when that lady you can talk to in your phone and responds back, and everybody was really excited about that, right? And here, as a person who is blind, I had to buy a third-party software application and load it onto my phone so that I can access, a text message or read an email, dial a phone number, etc., and be able to hear what is happening on the phone and reading the information and interacting with that device, to things that have become convenient for the rest of the population, right? We don't have to type on the phone or on your phone a text message. Everybody can just push the button and do it, or ask somebody in a box, what the weather is for today. So those convenience items that we all take for granted, autonomous vehicles and how cool technology that is, but what that could do for the disabled community in terms of transportation to and from work on a daily basis, or just being independent. That was probably one of the hardest things for myself, right, is turning in my driver's license and hanging up my keys. To be able to gain that back would be huge, while the rest of society is gaining from this new technology advancement. Just amazing.
It is. It really is. And David, there's probably some people that wish I would turn in my keys as well. Probably not the best driver in the world, but look, I agree 100%. And it's exciting. It's an exciting time. But I laugh and I kind of make a joke occasionally. I didn't even know what IT meant till I got part of AIB. But at the same time, the changes that are happening daily, it's exciting. It's exciting for me as a person who is sighted. As I get older, sight is diminishing somewhat. But for people who do not have sight and all the things coming out, I'm really excited. Not just for tomorrow, but what's behind tomorrow. It's really exciting time for opportunities that are coming for people who are blind and visually impaired.
Yeah, for sure. Technology definitely levels the playing field in my personal life and professional life. We talk about tomorrow. What do you see is the future? How does corporate America, how does Arizona Industries for the Blind, how do we as a community together build that for tomorrow? What type of collaborations or things would you think need to be seen for those things to happen?
Well, look, one close, very close to my heart is starting to educate and promoting people with visual impairment or blindness or disabilities And when I say promote, put them in positions where they can start making decisions. That's going to help tremendously. I don't think we've done a great job. I really don't. And I put myself in that category at times. I'm getting better. It comes through experience and learning. But at the same time, we've got to promote. That'll help tremendously, starting getting opinions to be heard. So you got to have a voice. You have to have a voice, David. But along that way is, we're doing things at AIB. We're looking at automation. What does that mean? That means that me as a sighted person and someone who is totally blind could be equal if that automation is working for both of us. It means we don't have to walk around a 175,000 square foot facility. That automation would bring the product to me. It would count out loud. It would have safety measures already part of the picking system. If I was picking, if I was sorting, if I was shipping, whatever it may be, that automation is going to help tremendously. So that's what we're trying to do. That's one step, and looking at new technology as well. But look, it's coming, and we're looking at it to advance everyone, not just people who are blind or visually impaired, but allow us, number one, to be more efficient, more competitive. So when we look at commercial opportunities, we're able to compete against anyone, but at the same time, those government opportunities as well, and sharpen ourselves. We want to get better. We're just not happy with what we're doing today. We want to get better, and we're going to do so with automation.
Yeah, very, very good point. We talk a lot about technology as a driver. It empowers people to do things that they need to do in their job or at home. And we were also talking about education and bringing people up into the organization, and finding those that have the passion was kind of one of the conversations we had just today on the way over here is how to provide those opportunities for learning, right? Mentoring, excuse me, mentoring and other educational opportunities to bring people who are blind up into the organization, leadership roles, and finding, whether it's staying within that organization or going out into the community. Currently, what type of programs are available to people who are blind through AIB or the national affiliate?
So, look, I'll start out with NIB. They have a BMT where they're training, and somebody real close to me has been part and through that, and I think it helps tremendously prepare them and get them prepared to move forward. Is there a C-level program? I like to think that's what it's evolving to, NIB, where we're training leaders of tomorrow. I like to think so. Are there things that we can do with mentorships? Yes, there's some things we can do there. Are there opportunities where we bring people no different than somebody was in college and they went out and they worked for the summer and did an intern? We could do a lot more of that, and we're starting to look at that. That's even something that we may be looking at AIB. I have small steps that I want to start looking at, and some of them are interns that we bring in. I think it'd be extremely helpful. But please realize it's helpful to me as well, David, because I'm getting new ideas. I'm learning more. What am I not doing well? What can I provide? What else can I do? Sure. So I learn just as much as the person coming in. So by no means is it one-sided. So those are some of the steps that we're taking and some of the things that NIB is doing currently.
Great. Yeah, I think from an organization's perspective, right, having succession planning is key to an organization's success moving forward. So having that pipeline of talented individuals to kind of fill those roles as they become available, as well as looking back even further through the vocational rehabilitation programs where people are gaining the core blindness skills, or how to use technology, how to live independent, orientation, mobility, things like that, so that when they finish those programs, they have the skill sets to go out and compete. And one of the things that I found, right, was that I had those sets, I had my education, but I ran into that wall, what I call kind of the O factor, when I would go into an interview and have a conversation with somebody, and the topic, walking with my cane, or I mentioned the visual impairment. You can feel the attitude, the tension in the room change and pressure. And so if somebody has the vocational training, has through maybe that internship with AIB or other organizations, that they can come in and say, I have experience as this administrative, this accounts payable function, whatever that job is that they're looking to do. And they had that demonstrated skill, and I've done it for a year and a half at this organization. And it's a Fortune 500, or it's a enterprise business that really helps elevate that status of that employee. Then gives I think an opportunity to that hiring manager that the person has the abilities, has the skill sets, and can do the job, and helps ease that maybe awkwardness.
Yeah, David, look, there's some things that can be done. And look, not everybody wants the opportunity. Please understand it. You got to have the desire. So look, there's some people that say that old moment and they walk out the door, or some people say the door is not open. And there's some people who kick the door down. I encourage people to kick the door down. You got to have a voice, speak for yourself. But I can't give someone a desire to want more. I cannot do it. There are other things that get in the way, David, and it's something that has bothered me, and it bothers me more and more every single day. Is we have people that want to move forward in our organization, other organizations, and something like SSDI gets in the way. We've got to do better as a government, as a society, because it gets in the way. It stagnates growth. It does. And so you're asking a person to choose, and I don't think that's right. I really think we've got to reformulate this to where we look at all disabilities, and rather than SSDI being a hindrance, it is an asset. And again, that really hurts professional growth, but it also hurts society as well, because we're losing a lot of talent.
Sure. Great point. There are definitely barriers, self-imposed, and those posed upon us. And desire is something that has to come within and can't always be taught, or somebody made to have that. Right? We have to be able to self-advocate for yourself. Have to make sometimes really tough decisions, as you mentioned, whether it's with SSDI or another program. That weighing those options of, do I leave this security of SSDI or security where I'm at and take that big leap of faith? And for a lot of people, it's easy to stay where you are. I think whether that you're disabled or not, I think that's just a common trait among humans, is to be able to say, I'm going to protect myself and stay where it's safe, what I know. And hopefully this show and many more conversations that we have help people understand that there's more to that. There's more opportunity. There's more abilities, more strength through development.
There's not only strength with development, there's strength in numbers as well, David. So as we build and you build a audience and people get more and more buy-in, there's strength in the numbers. And the more voices we can put together, the louder we'll be. So I think we're on the right path.
Yeah, absolutely. So we also were talking about the technology that you use in the organization. We talked about some of the development programs through the National Industries for the Blind, upward mobility, business management training, looking at some other things. What other barriers do you feel are, whether they're self-imposed or posed upon, through whether it's policy or even in the private sector, that need to be looked at?
There's several that get on me a little bit, David. I'll get in all kind of trouble here shortly. CIE, integrated employment, definition of disability. I have a huge problem that people who are in an office and wearing a tie and never been into an agency or seen people who are disabled or blind or vision impaired work are making policies that affect us all. That bothers me immensely. The fact that certain organizations, certain jobs, certain things are viewed as integrated employment. Well, right now, I think we have dissected it so much that we've had so little movement in 20 plus years, and I'll throw WIOA in it as well, that we've had no movement because we keep putting political ties or boundaries. Look, at the end of the day, we need jobs. Unemployment rate has not changed in my 24 years that I've been part of this program. And we keep putting barriers, and we say they're platforms, but they end up being barriers. And I think they're built and have good meaning. But if they're not working, we need to move beyond. If I've got a car that I just bought and it doesn't run, then I have to get another car. So these plans that we're putting together, and if they don't move fast enough or forward, we need to move to another plan. These are some of the things that really stunt me, and I'm trying to understand why. But again, right now, the unemployment rate has not moved in 20 plus years. We've got to do better, and I've got to do better. I'm part of the problem. What else can I do? What else can I say? What phrase do I need to say that somebody will hear? What message can I say? What can I repeat? Is it something else that we can push our legislator on? Yes, all the above. So we've got to get better. But what we do need is the narrative needs to change. Is we need to start talking about employment because I think we had a conversation recently when everybody was up in arms when it was 8% unemployment rate amongst the working class. Well, what is working class? In America, the great. We're doing it 70% for 20 plus. Why is nobody raising their hands? Why is nobody getting fed up? Why don't we have politicians sitting on at the Capitol and just raising Cain? Or raising canes for that matter. So, but David, we've got to do more. And that's where I think as a concerted effort and lifting our voices together, self-advocating and getting together with groups and really making a difference and getting in front of these congressmen and women, I think we're going to make a difference there.
Yeah, I agree. All right. You use that phrase a lot. Use your voice. Create that momentum, self-advocate or whatever it is. And it's important that even on the disability community, right, we don't often see eye to eye. We'll hear differences in how you identify yourself as a blind person or a person who is blind. Is this job more than or less than because it's this type of job? And so there's a lot of factors, I think, that contribute to some of these conversations that happen on a policy level. Conversations that happen in the community. And right, we have to look at how do we come together, have people with disabilities at the table having the conversations alongside those policymakers and those that can help influence and help push for whether it's policy, push for corporate America, push for themselves to be able to achieve the goals or aspirations that they're looking for, instead of being really kind of directed or told what you can and can't do.
100% agree, David. Look, I don't want to get off on and push us in the wrong direction, but please understand, there's pride coming in and doing a good job. That job does not have a title. So often we get hurt or hindered by a title. Growing up, I had a friend whose father was our janitor at school. All we knew is when we went to his house, there was food on the table. Did we care he was a janitor? That's not fair. He did a great job of supporting his family. And that's what I look at. He retired from that 30 plus years. What they also didn't say, he was a counselor. I mean, he talked to every single one of us. Mm-hmm. He treated us all the same. But today, he's a janitor. I didn't see him. I saw him as a friend. And I think we've gotten stuck so often, and it's a hindrance. But please understand, there's so much pride to go. There's a Norman Rockwell painting, and it's a person in a wheelchair, and he's racing off to a bank, and he's got a paycheck in his hand. He's got the biggest smile on his face. Well, we have forgotten that, and we have forgotten that in sighted and blindness community. There's a lot of pride that comes with a job well done, and at times we have hurt ourselves by trying to put these jobs in different classes. I strongly encourage others to fight for more and more. I 100% agree with those people who are trying to do so. But again, by continuously looking at jobs as saying, this is not what we need to do, or this is not white collar, blue collar, there's nothing wrong with the job, especially when you have unemployment rate among 70%.
Yeah, great follow-up, and thank you for doing that, right, is letting people decide what is right for them, what makes them happy. Some of the conversations we've had in terms of today and in the past about, fulfilling your passion, being proud that you've done a hard day's work. And a lot comes into that. And I think it's important whether it's just you and I have these conversations or within our program, within the disability community, but I think it's important for the listeners on this network and other networks like it to understand the importance of having a different viewpoint, having different perspective, giving the opportunity to someone who is blind, vision impaired, or someone who with a disability to have that opportunity to prove their ability. And they'll find that typically they'll find a more loyal, dedicated employee because they've worked harder, probably in most cases, to get to work that day.
That's exactly right. Can you imagine? And I have to pick on myself here, David, and I have no problem. I think I do that well. I think it was about 2 years ago. I was having some work done at my house, and I came in and I had several cuts on my face. And the first person I came to was you. And I said, "David, you kidding me? I had to shave in the dark, man. I've got cuts all over my face, and you just looked at me like I was crazy." Like I do it every morning, Chris. No big deal. So I pick on myself, and we can all use some humor in this. But look, we take ourselves too serious. Let's get down to the core issue: blind employment. We need to get there, and I'm so grateful that you have the platform now, and you're now building an audience that others are going to be able to hear, because the message needs to be heard, sir.
Yeah, I agree, and thank you, Chris. And it's a great platform. We have these conversations on a daily basis internally. I have these with my colleagues, different advocacy and consumer groups that I belong to, and other organizations to help really change the narrative and bring in the opportunity for someone to have the experience. And we kicked off our show about is gaining the experience. One of the things that I think would help in terms of that, or from your perspective, is where does someone who has the desire, right, another leader, CEO of an organization here locally or nationally, want to start an initiative, what kind of things would you maybe help give some guidance or information on?
That is really great there, David. That's exactly what we need to be doing. First and foremost, find out what's going on in your community. Find out what's available, number one. They're going to be really impressed with the talent out there. If it's working with a nonprofit like us, AIB, or even a national with NIB or Source America, to find out what kind of opportunities they could offer to bring someone on their team. What they're going to be really impressed with is the amount of talent, the education, the experience, the performance that's available to them. So I would encourage them to reach out locally. It's the easiest way to do it, and just do a search. Everybody loves Google these days, so just reach out and Google it. It could be easy as just press and ask, and then search out. And I will tell you, I encourage people, any of the listeners, especially CEOs or decision makers, come see what we're doing. The proof is there in the ongoing performance, 26 years and running. But if not, we can point you to somewhere that is closer to you. But even at a national level, NIB and Source America, you go on their websites and you're seeing the everyday success stories of people who are blind, visually impaired, and or disabled. So they're going to be able to see the capabilities. They're going to be able to see the people who are partnering today, all the way from a large company all the way to a small company of 15 to 20 people. So I think it's a great question, but the first step's got to be them. They've got to understand that the labor force is there, is talented, it's educated, they perform, and they can meet above and exceed all standards. But once they do, they'll be really impressed, without a doubt. It's a great question.
Yeah, thank you. It's important I talked about the O factor, but there's also the aha factor, making that connection, right? We can talk about it all day long. It's having that interaction, whether it's walking down the street on the way to work, right? Dressed professionally, or on your way to a sporting event, or even just, everyday living, is that opportunity to interact with somebody and gain a new perspective. And in the workplace, having that where you can come to an organization like Arizona Industries Blind, see the work being performed that you are looking for, or things that you do as an organization in your core business, and seeing people being successful in the workplace is amazing. Definitely. In order for that to happen, then we need to be able to reach out to. So how would we, as the business community, connect to Arizona Industries for the Blind? How do we get a hold of you?
Well, look, it's really easy. We have a website. We'd love for you to come see us at azifb.com. We have a great public policy, community support, business development. I believe his name is David Steinmetz. Please reach out to that guy. He is fantastic, a lot smarter than I am. That is a first step. And then what we can do is get you inside the building. Once you get inside the building, we're going to win. You're going to see what kind of talent we have and what kind of talent's available to your job or to your opportunity. It's just really exciting. It really is. And you talked about AHA. I think we've made it about 5 feet, 10 feet into our distribution before people say, wow, had no idea. I love those. Don't you love those?
Yeah.
And what I really enjoyed is that those companies like, those small little companies, Amazon and others, when they send out people or their representative and they say, wow. So that's, again, let's get them in the doors. But those are good ways to get started, sir.
Excellent. Thank you. So reaching out to azifb.com for website, LinkedIn, Facebook at AZ Industries for the Blind. Find more information, things happening around the organization and blindness related. We are coming up on the end of our hour, so I wanted to first thank you very much for your time, Chris, your insights and thoughts on really making a difference in the lives of people who are blind, vision impaired through dignified employment. And I hope to all of our listeners today that you have gained some new understanding and perspective that with the right training, with the right technology and the right opportunity, people who are blind and vision impaired or have other disabilities can compete and be successful in the workplace. Thank you.
Thank you for listening to Changing the Perception of Blindness, One Conversation at a Time with your host, David Steinmetz. Be sure to subscribe to Changing the Perception of Blindness, One Conversation at a Time on your favorite podcast platform and tune in live on Phoenix Business RadioX every third Friday at 1 p.m. We hope you feel inspired by today's conversation and maybe we've even sparked a new idea or opportunity.